At 06:12 hours local time, the calm sky over the Gulf of Aden was shattered by a sudden flash of gunfire. A US Navy MH-60R Seahawk, call sign Sabre 71, hovered 800 feet above the choppy blue-gray water, scanning the horizon for threats. Below, the Liberian-flagged tanker Endeavour Spirit plowed steadily through the internationally recommended transit corridor, its silhouette flanked to the east by the guided missile destroyer USS Mason. To anyone watching from afar, it looked like just another routine escort mission. But this stretch of ocean has a way of turning quiet mornings into combat zones within seconds. Just off the tanker's starboard bow, a fast-moving skiff suddenly peeled away from a cluster of fishing boats. 5 men aboard, 2 standing. Sabre 71's tactical systems immediately painted the surface contact. One pirate lifted something long and dark, a possible PKM machine gun. Another reached into a crate and pulled out a familiar tube, an RPG-7 launcher, the weapon of choice when pirates want to make a statement. Within seconds, muzzle flashes erupted. Yellow sparks cut through the haze as AK-47 tracers arced skyward. One round ricocheted off the Seahawk's left sponson. No injuries, no damage, but the intent was unmistakable. They had just opened fire on a US Navy helicopter. A colossal mistake. Sabre 71's pilot reacted instantly. The aircraft banked hard right, climbing through 200 feet in a sharp defensive maneuver. Countermeasure flares burst beneath the rotors, glowing white-hot against the morning sky. Inside the cockpit, there was no panic. These crews trained for exactly this moment. Over the radio, the call went out. Hostile fire detected. Sabre 71 taking evasive. Request ROE clarification. Aboard the USS Mason, the Combat Information Center sprang into action. Hostile act confirmed. Rules of engagement cleared within seconds. Proportional respo. Hints authorized. Down below, the skiff's crew tried to scatter, throttling erratically as if they could outmaneuver sensors and steel. They didn't realize who they were dealing with. Sabre 71 wasn't just any helicopter. It was bristling with sensors, firepower, and backed by the full weight of a destroyer strike element. By firing at it, the pirates hadn't just picked a fight. They'd declared one, and the US Navy was more than ready to answer. The Seahawk climbed higher, rotors howling as the pilot executed a tactical loop. The door gunner slid the M240 into firing position, eyes locked through the sight. Contact bearing 160, 300 meters off the tanker's bow. FLIR feed showed 5 heat signatures, 2 firing, 1 still shouldering the RPG. Warning fire, came the command. The gunner squeezed the trigger, unleashing a short, tight burst that churned the water just ahead of the skiff's bow. 7.62 millimeter rounds struck with surgical precision, close enough for seawater spray to slap the men's faces. "Let's see if they still feel brave," the gunner muttered. The effect was immediate. The skiff's throttle eased. 2 men dropped their weapons. The RPG disappeared, tossed or jammed, it didn't matter. Sabre 71 looped wide, maintaining visual and radar lock. Over the comms. "This is Sabre 71. Hostile fire confirmed. 1 RPG, small arms discharge. Skiff stationary. No casualties on our end. Awaiting surface response." On Mason, the reply was crisp. "Arab teams launching. Lancer 72 airborne in 90 seconds. Maintain overwatch." While the Seahawk stabilized at altitude, its radar swept low across the surface. FLIR tracked every twitch on the skiff. This wasn't over. Incidents like these are often probes, designed to test U.S. reaction time, rules of engagement, or even bait a larger response. What those pirates didn't realize was that by pulling those triggers, they had placed themselves at the center of a rapidly tightening noose. 2 Navy helicopters, a destroyer, and boarding teams were now converging on their position. And in the Gulf of Aden, that never ends well for the ones in the skiff. On board the USS Mason, the bridge and CIC were already moving like clockwork. The moment Sabre 71 confirmed hostile fire, protocols snapped into place. No alarms blared, no chaos, just controlled precision. Bridge CIC, launch Arab teams. Lancer 72 is cleared hot. Maintain visual on the skiff. Within moments, 2 Arabs, rigid hull inflatable boats, splashed into the water, their crews executing practice motions born from countless drills. Each boat carried a VBSS team. Visit, board, search, and seizure. These weren't negotiators. They were highly trained, heavily armed operators, ready to move fast and finish the job. Above, a second MH-60R Seahawk, call sign Lancer 72, lifted off from Mason's flight deck, engines screaming as it tore through the humid morning air to join Sabre 71 overhead. Two Navy helicopters now circled the target zone like hawks, one providing overwatch, the other fresh and fully armed. Downrange, the pirate skiff drifted dead in the water, its engine still warm but its fight gone cold. The ribs advanced in a textbook pincer pattern, bows pounding through the morning chop. Laser rangefinders swept across the hull. Every movement on the skiff was tracked. Over loudhailers, commands rang out in English and Somali. Drop your weapons. Remain seated. The pirates hesitated for only a moment before compliance set in. Some tried to shove weapons beneath tarps. Others raised their hands in surrender. It didn't matter. The VBSS team leader's voice thundered through the bullhorn. US Navy, do not move. The lead RHIB closed to within 20 meters. The second flanked left, cutting off any chance of escape. Pirates froze in place. Boarding commenced with surgical speed. VBSS operators poured onto the skiff, rifles trained, eyes sharp. AK-47s were recovered. An RPG tube lay discarded near the bow. Several GPS units and handheld radios sat on the deck, still tuned to civilian frequencies. This wasn't their first operation, and it likely wouldn't have been their last, if not for their fatal mistake. The detainees were zip-tied and moved onto the rib decks, heads down, wrists bound. Meanwhile, boarding teams swept through the skiff for hidden compartments or explosives. Clean. No IEDs, no booby traps. Just desperation and poor judgment. Back aboard the Mason, the arrest logs began to fill in. Another interdiction, another armed crew taken off the water. But there were no cheers on the destroyer, just focused professionalism. Everyone knew this was part of a bigger fight. For every skiff taken, more would come. Above, Sabre 71 and Lancer 72 widened their surveillance orbit. Their radars and FLIR systems scanned the horizon for secondary contacts. Pirate tactics often rely on motherships operating miles away, floating bases that deploy smaller attack skiffs. But today, the sea was clear. No reinforcements, no escape. As the boarding teams secured the detainees, intelligence officers on board Mason examined the recovered equipment. Radios, GPS trackers, and satellite phones were bagged and tagged for exploitation. Every ping, frequency, and contact would be traced by analysts at US Central Command. This was more than 5 men in a skiff. This was a thread in a much larger web, and with each interdiction, that web became a little clearer. On deck, the captured pirates sat restrained under the watchful eyes of armed sailors. The Gulf of Aden sun climbed higher, glinting off the destroyer's gray hull. Another engagement was over, but nobody aboard believed for a second that the threat was gone. In these waters, danger doesn't vanish. It waits, watches, learns, and the US Navy learns faster. Every US Navy carrier strike group moves through the world's waterways surrounded by a silent, layered shield, a bubble of surveillance, speed, and overwhelming firepower. At its core, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, a floating airfield, and command center. But the real workhorses in piracy zones aren't the carriers. They're the destroyers and cruisers riding shotgun, ships like the USS Mason. Their mission, escort high-value merchant vessels, monitor hostile zones like the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and intercept threats long before they can reach their target. The tactics are simple on paper, but complex in execution. First come the airborne eyes. Seahawks like Sabre 71 and Lancer 72 fly wide-area overwatch patrols, sweeping racetrack patterns 10 to 50 miles out. Their FLIR, radar, and data links give commanders a real-time map of everything that moves across the surface. They can cover more ocean in an hour than the destroyer can see in 4. Second is persistent surveillance. MQ-8B Fire Scout drones or Scan Eagle UAVs often launch ahead of convoys. Silent, low profile, and relentless, they feed intelligence back to the ship around the clock. Third comes electronic detection. Navy vessels constantly scan the electromagnetic spectrum, listening for pirate chatter, GPS signals, burner phones, or anything that breaks the silence. Pirates often betray themselves without realizing it. Fourth is surface interdiction. RHIB teams launch low and fast, armed to the teeth, ready to intercept within minutes. They don't waste time asking questions unless it's strategic. And finally, if escalation is required, strike assets from the carrier can be airborne in minutes. FA-18. Super Hornets aren't just dogfighters. They can deliver precision fire on pirate motherships, staging areas, or radar signatures that go dark at the wrong time. The Navy doesn't hunt pirates like police. It hunts them like predators, with eyes everywhere, speed at every level, and the power to flip the situation in seconds. That's exactly what happened this morning. The pirates had no idea how many sensors were watching them until it was already far too late. Back aboard the USS Mason, the detainees sat zip-tied in silence. The boarding teams remained alert, scanning for lingering threats, but the adrenaline had shifted to focused assessment. In military terms, the operation was a textbook cleanup. No U.S. casualties, minimal force, and a successful interdiction. But in intelligence terms, it was a goldmine. The radios, GPS units, and phones would be sent to U.S. Central Command for analysis. Each frequency would be logged, each call traced, each route mapped. Intelligence analysts would piece together the puzzle of who armed these men, who directed them, and who might be waiting for their return. This was never just about 5 pirates in a fiberglass skiff. It was about networks, logistics, and deterrence. As the Seahawk crews rotated back to Mason, mission complete, the debriefing began immediately. From the pilot's seat to the CIC consoles, every action was documented and analyzed. In the world of anti-piracy operations, no engagement is routine. Every contact is a rehearsal for the one that won't go according to plan. And make no mistake, the pirates watch too. They adapt, test, and push boundaries. But so does the U.S. Navy, and the difference is the Navy trains for every possibility. The ripple effect of what happened with Sabre 71 and the USS Mason reached far beyond a single skiff in the Gulf of Aden. This was more than a thwarted attack. It was a clear message to every network watching. When pirates opened fire on a U.S. Navy helicopter, they didn't just pick the wrong target. They triggered the full weight of layered maritime power, a response built over decades of doctrine, technology, and relentless training. In the debrief room aboard the Mason, the timeline of the engagement was reviewed step by step. From the first muzzle flashes to the final boarding, the entire operation unfolded in less than 30 minutes. Radar operators detected the skiff. Sabre 71 responded instantly. Rules of engagement were confirmed, RIB teams launched, and the pirates were subdued without a single U.S. casualty. The efficiency wasn't luck. It was the result of thousands of drills, countless hours of flight time, and tight coordination between air crews, CIC operators, and boarding teams. While the detainees sat zip-tied below deck, intelligence specialists combed through their gear. GPS devices revealed breadcrumb trails, routes traced across smuggling corridors, fishing clusters, and potential pirate mothership locations. Radios carried chatter that analysts would decode, connecting dots between regional cells. Even burner phones, often dismissed as cheap tools, carried contact logs that could unravel larger networks. In the fight against piracy, data can be more powerful than bullets. But beyond the tactical success lay the strategic reality. The Gulf of Aden isn't just a patch of water, it's one of the world's most critical arteries. Every day, tankers, container ships, and LNG carriers carrying billions in cargo pass through this narrow choke point. Pirates know this. Their strategy relies on surprise, speed, and the hope that their targets are too slow to respond. But today they ran into something entirely different, a destroyer heliborne net that reacted with precision and overwhelming force. This is why navies from more than 30 nations patrol these waters. Combined, Task Force 151 isn't ceremonial. It's a multinational shield. The US, France, India, China, Russia, and many others rotate warships through this corridor. Their mission, to ensure that this artery of global trade remains open and secure. And on this morning, Sabre 71's encounter proved that the shield is very much a live for the pirates. This operation reset the risk equation. Stories spread fast across smuggler networks. Don't shoot at the gray helicopters isn't a suggestion. It's survival advice. Every skiff that fires on a U.S. Navy aircraft doesn't just risk retaliation. It invites layered surveillance, rapid interdiction, and overwhelming firepower. There are no second chances. For the Navy, this was business as usual. But that's precisely what makes it powerful. The ability to respond swiftly, lawfully, and decisively without escalating into chaos is the hallmark of U.S. naval dominance. Sabre 71 didn't unleash missiles or level the skiff. It responded with measured force, precision, and coordination that left no doubt who controlled the battle space. And then there's the question that lingers in strategic circles. Should U.S. Navy helicopters be authorized to engage more aggressively before being fired upon? Some argue that preemptive action could save lives and deter future attacks. Others warn it could escalate incidents unnecessarily. It's a debate that grows louder with every engagement like this one. As the sun rose higher over the Gulf of Aden, the USS Mason resumed her escort mission. The sea looked calm again, but below the surface, ripples of this encounter were already spreading. Through pirate channels, intelligence networks, and naval command centers. This wasn't just another engagement. It was a live demonstration of presence, power, and precision. Because in these waters, when you point a rifle at a Seahawk, you're not starting a fight. You're ending your options.